Hello and welcome to MKB Life Coach podcast. Today I'm speaking to Mike Barnett. His story is amazing. From where he came from to where he is now is truly inspirational. You'll be able to contact him via all his details that are in the podcast notes. So grab a coffee, sit back and enjoy. And don't forget, if you want to contact myself, again, all my details are in the notes of the podcast. But just jump onto my website, which is mkblifecoach.com. I look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you. Right, so today's podcast is with Mike Barnett, who I have known, it's since we worked it out when we were having a chat the other week, back since 2003.
I think it's about 2003. Yeah, 2002, 2003.
Yeah,
a long time.
It has. We both worked for Three. You were working, which branch were you working in? Because I worked in so many different branches, I'm trying to remember.
Same with me. So I two-peated over because I used to work for the Link, and then they got sold, and they Three bought my particular branch. I was in Nuneaton at the time.
Yeah.
But then with Three, I'd done the same. So I went everywhere. So I was in Nuneaton, I was in Leamington, all over the Midlands.
It was. I mean, I know I went into the Coventry branch, Nuneaton, Hinckley.
Yeah.
Basically Nottingham's, all the I loved the job there. I must admit, it was a good fun company to work for, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was definitely I think that was the start of my. I would say that's probably the official start of my journey.
Yeah.
Probably at that point, and the corporate environment, the business. I think that's what got me the passion for business, was working for Three and becoming a manager with them and seeing how a business runs.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the start of my journey there, really.
That's brilliant. So I mean, obviously we were on Facebook together, and we in and out of each other's lives throughout the years. But obviously we met up to have a chat via Zoom a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? You told me your story, and I just think it's so inspiring. And I wanted to obviously to share it with as many people as possible. So do you want to just go through from after you left Three, obviously your life changed lots.
So I think if we start with Three, and I remember Three was like quite an intense job, wasn't it? And I remember doing the management meetings and the KPIs and the targets that we had, and it was quite a high pressure job.
Yeah.
And I remember actually that's when we first met, and I remember actually looking up to you because you was like this super manager, and you was what I wanted to be like. And I was so young at the time, and I think I must have been 24 or 25 at the time. And I remember sitting in those manager meetings and just looking up to you and thinking, I wish I could be as good a manager as you. And that was where the whole journey started for me. So first off, it was the passion for business, and it got me in that corporate environment, and I loved it, and I loved learning the behind the scenes of the business, and they kind of got us involved in that, didn't they?
They did.
And that was where the passion began. But it was also where my journey took a really insidious and dark turn. And it was the first time I ever got introduced to drugs. Now, not saying Three was a big drugs ring or circuit or anything like that, but there was a particular member of staff that offered me cocaine, and being that high pressure environment it was in, it was just an easy option, and that was it. That was my introduction to it, and that's where I started, thinking it was I could keep it under control.
Yeah.
Or it was just a social thing. Everyone that I knew at the time that done it, it was just a social thing for them. And they would do it on a weekend or once a month or whatever.
Yeah.
So I had it this once, and then I remember asking for it again a week later, and then I kind of liked it too much. It had become more of a daily occurrence, or every other day. And that was the start of, I would say, becoming a drug addict, and that was the beginning. And I've struggled with drug addiction for, what we saying, 15 years probably. Well, I think so. What, 2000 and that was about 2004, 2005. So maybe a bit longer. Maybe 15 or 16 years. And at that point, I was doing cocaine every day, and it all comes to a head. I had my first child was born, and I quit cocaine. I stopped, and I didn't do it. And I knew that I had to try and get clean for my newborn child.
Yeah.
And I did for a little while, and I left 3, and like the passion for business was there, and I set up another business, and it did okay for probably 3 or 4 years, and then the drugs come back into my life, so I relapsed. So I was clean for a few years, and I was offered it again, and I thought this time round I could control it. I knew how bad it could be, and I decided to just do it as a social thing again. And that completely, it didn't work. That sent me out of control again. I was back on it every single day. And when, if anyone out there that's never done cocaine, it is such a horrible drug. It gives you a buzz for just a few minutes, but then the downer on it is horrible, and it can last hours and hours. Wow. And the other thing is, it damages your body, it damages your brain, it damages your internals, it damages your nose, everything. It's so bad. But it also financially drains you, and it's so expensive. And my habit was costing me around about £100 a day, and it's just unthinkable how much it costs. And that was my downward spiral again. And I remember it sent me into a massive spiral of depression. And you have everything that causes depression, cocaine attaches itself to. So like having no money, on a best time, if you've got no money, it's depressing. But doing that while you're on cocaine and having no money, it's terrible. And I remember I was drunk. I was off my face with coke, and I was lying in a ditch in the street, and somebody phoned my mum, and my mum found me and come and took me back. And it was that point I was like, for my mum, I've got to do something to get clean.
Yeah.
So I did, and I decided to join the army, and that's where my army career started. It took me about a year to get in, so I wasn't as you can imagine, I wasn't in the best shape before going into the army. I'd been on cocaine every day for probably a year. I was overweight. I was just unfit. So it took me around about a year to get into the army. But the army were pretty good back then. They let me. From that day, it took me a year to come in, but it felt like I was in the military on day one.
Oh, brilliant!
They took me in at the careers office. They set you goals. So they're like, right, you need to be able to run a mile and a half in 10 minutes. So they give you targets to do, and they give you a course called a Look at Life course. So you can spend, and you only normally do one, and you go away for nearly a week with the army. And it's, to be honest, it's nothing like the army. It's not even like cadets. I was in the cadets as a kid.
Yeah.
And it's nothing like that. It's the glossiest version of the army you could probably imagine, with roses and chocolates. It's like, so we done this Look at Life course, and I was continuing to get fitter and fitter. And then at this time as well, because of the drugs and everything, I'd lost everything, lost my business. I'd lost my relationship, everything. I was living at home with my mum. I didn't have a job. So the army were like, well, if you want to keep doing Look at Life courses, you can. So I think I went on 3 or 4 Look at Life courses. So they booked me one in every other month till I went to basic training. So by the time I got to basic training, I thought, wow, I'm going to be like #1 recruit.
Yeah.
And I'd done these, and I thought the army's not bad, it's easy. And then I actually went to basic training, and I was like, oh my God, it was like a reality shock, just straight in the face. Yeah, that was my introduction to the army.
That's that did the army know you about your drug? Did you have to tell them about the drugs addiction or anything? Or
so at the time, no, I didn't declare it.
No, I didn't know if they just want. That's when
you can get. I think I believe you can get in, but it makes it a lot harder. And I, like, at the time, I just needed to get off that street and away, and I was. And that's what it did, and it kept me clean again for another nearly 4 years.
That's excellent.
It was, but the army itself was quite tough. And then I joined at a late age. So at this time, I was about 20. I was 28 when I started this process. I think I was 27, nearly 28.
Yeah.
By the time I got to battalion, by the time I got to depot, that's where you do your training.
Yeah.
I was like 29, and then I got to battalion and I was 30. So I was like one of the older guys with no rank in the army.
Yeah.
So that straight away puts you in on a back foot. Like, it's so hard to keep up with the younger squaddies when they've just come out of Harrogate. They're 17, they're 18. And they're fit as a fiddle. And there's me, like, for 10 years prior, 7 years prior, I've been a drug addict. So I was like, it was hard work. And I'd done really well to start with. I got through basic training, got to battalion. I was an older bloke, so I got a bit more respect. The younger lads looked up to me a little bit, and I never got in trouble ever in the army. There was a thing in the army called ag eyes. They were like detentions at school, basically. And I never even got one, and it was quite common for people to get them. And all I focused on was coming home for the weekends to see my son. And that was, so I never done anything wrong. I didn't want to get in trouble. I just wanted, if you got in trouble and got an ag eye, you could potentially lose your weekend. So I didn't want to lose my weekend. So I never got in trouble. But then, because of my age, and I was in the infantry, so one of the hardest areas of the British Army, I got injured. I injured my back, my leg, my foot. It was all nerve damage, and it was literally a nightmare. I got downgraded, and that means you can't fulfill your role as a soldier. So they give you other roles to do, like working in the stores, working in bedding, showing people around accommodation. Just, if you feel like a civvy in the army, but it's not even like, going back to the business side of things, where I loved business. I set up my own business. I loved being a manager. Going from that to going to the army, being a soldier is cool, but then when you end up folding bed sheets, and no disrespect for anyone that does that sort of job, but it just wasn't for me. And it wasn't the soldier job, and it certainly wasn't anything that was challenging me. So I become depressed, and just started not enjoying the army. And then, I won't go into too much detail, but I lost one of my friends. Things were just starting to go out of control. My dad was very ill. He had dementia and Parkinson's disease. And he was like, he could have passed away at any moment. And everything started to come to a head again. And that's when I turned to cocaine again. And foolishly, I told myself I'll just do it for a couple of weeks just to get by, and I was actually about to receive a medical discharge from the army for my injuries as well. And I took cocaine, and I got caught on a compulsory drugs test in the CDT, they call them, compulsory drug test. And I got literally booted out of the army. I got caught on the Monday. I think it was the Monday I was caught. By Tuesday afternoon, I was sent home. So I was at home. I didn't know how my military career, what was going to happen to my military career. It was just in a balance. I was home for 2 weeks. I didn't hear anything, and then I got a phone call. Barnett, you've got to get into camp. You're being charged. So I went back to camp, and the CO was really good with me. He's like, look, I know that you're a good soldier. You've done nothing wrong. And he goes, you're an absolute idiot. You're about to get med discharged. You're going to have a full pension, everything. And you've just been caught with this. He goes, if it was left to me, I would leave you in the army. And at that point, I still hadn't fully decided if I was going to leave. Even though I was offered a med pension, I could have still promoted. I still could have found a job that probably suited me in the army. And I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I didn't have an option. I was just told, right, that's it, you're gone. And I saw the CO on that day, and they released me, and that was it. There was no introduction back to civvy life. There was no help with the drugs. There was nothing. And if you're a normal soldier and you leave, and especially even if I got medically discharged as well, you go through a process called resettlement.
Yeah.
And what that means is you spend 6 months. So the army like you to give a year's notice.
Right.
But during that year's notice, you'll be a soldier for 6 months, wind down your career slowly, and then the last 6 months you'll go to the education centre.
Yeah.
And you will spend your whole time there. You can retrain, train as electricians, train as plumber, look for jobs, have help, counsellor, anything you want. And there's money, there's credits, so you can go to university. There's loads of stuff thrown at you. There's even the TA option, or reservists as they call them. They will pay you money, a bounty to go into the TA, or they don't call it that anymore, the reserves. And there's loads of options for you as a civvy. So you don't automatically just lose that army over the what's the words? You don't lose that
you're not just
camaraderie.
You've still got that support
range. You've still got that support if you want it as well. But with what happened with me, it was like, right, that's it, you're gone. So I was sent home, and I didn't know what to do. I was now taking drugs again, and I just spiraled out of control. And it turned out I got caught with quite a considerable amount of cocaine on me, and I was arrested and charged with possession of a large amount of cocaine. And it was in the balance whether I would go to jail or not. We didn't know at the time, and I was on bail.
So scary.
Yeah, that was like the most life-changing part of my life I think I've ever had, and like a reality check. And that was like 5 years ago. It was awful.
Did you go back onto the cocaine just for the release of, and basically so to get you out of the situation, or your head out of the situation, or was it the pain? Because obviously you still had the injury from being in the army.
Yeah, that was another thing as well. So when I left the army, physiotherapy stopped. I was having physio every single day, every day, apart from weekends. And you were still given exercise and stuff to do at weekends. And I was under a place called Headley Court, and that's where they send you if you've got quite serious injuries. Like a lot of the soldiers that lost their limbs in Iraq and in Afghan went to Headley Court. So I was under Headley Court as well, and I was getting really intense physiotherapy, really good training. There's top class physios there. And then when I left, that all stopped. I had to then reapply, go back to my doctors, get physio. I think my first appointment come in around about 4 or 5 months after I got out of the army, and that was just a consultation with a specialist at the hospital, and it was an absolute nightmare. I ended up just scrapping it completely, and not and luckily for me, the rest helped my injuries. And I think with the army, the constant physio and the constant trying to get you fit again to be a soldier was what was causing my injury to stay worse. So where I've lost my chain of thought there.
You got caught with an awful lot of cocaine that you shouldn't have had. By the police, and they
Yeah, so you
got
said I was
charged?
taking it to medicate, like it was almost like pain relief medication, but also it was like to block out what was going on in my life. And I always noticed from the day one when I started cocaine, I'm a person that's always on the go, always wants to achieve, wants to do something.
That's wonderful. That's a
Hence
really
all
good
the things
thing
that I have
to
done
say.
throughout my
So,
life.
thanks
And
again, Mike.
cocaine, no, thanks, Maxine, the thing that would suppress me. And it has the opposite effect on me. I don't know why. Everyone I know that has it, they talk loads when they have it. They want to go out. They're sociable on it. It was opposite with me. I had cocaine, and it sent me into this like cocoon, like this world where I couldn't focus. I couldn't type a text message. I couldn't do anything. I was just in a weird zone. And I never used to drink alcohol with it either. It was just cocaine, and it sent me into this world where I didn't have to think about anything else other than what was in front of me. And that's probably the reason why I did it.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it. And so obviously once the police arrested you and you didn't know if you were going to go to prison or what was going to happen, and you were on bail for a long time, weren't you?
Yeah, so while I was on bail, they changed the law and made it so you can only, I believe, you can only be put on bail for 6 months now. But anyone that was currently on bail, it didn't apply to. So I was on bail for 2 years. So that time of my life was I would say this is the recovery time. So this is where I really found myself as a person.
Yeah.
And it's took 5 years. I think that whole process is, and I've never been to therapy or seen anyone. Everything's kind of been done through self-help, and I probably should have done. And I still think, like, we've had conversations. I think there's still areas that really need to be addressed. But what got me through it was I had to have a serious sit down and take a look at my life and what was wrong, and the areas where you don't even consider, and then you realize that's a massive area, and I never even thought about that. So
things like that, and you're getting your head clear. So you didn't take any drugs after you realized you've got to get yourself sorted, and that was it. So the drugs stopped.
Yeah, so basically, like, I rediscovered myself, and there was so many different areas that needed to be addressed. So the first one was getting a job. So I needed a stable job. That firstly, my lawyer was like, you need to find yourself a stable job so you don't go to jail. So there was that. You need to stay clean, which was like the shock of capture, the shock of being put in a prison cell, jail cell for a whole day. Was enough. So I remember sitting in there going, nah, never going to do drugs again. This is me. And I knew a switch had been flicked. And it was horrible. And being that person that's used to being out all the time and being free and doing stuff, being locked in a cell that was like no bigger than my toilet at home, it was horrible. So I ended up coming out. They bailed me that day, and I'd already applied for a few jobs. I think I applied for 5 jobs. But I had no interviews come through. But when I was arrested, they took all my phones off me, everything. So I had to go back to 3, actually, because that's who I was with. And I got a new SIM card from 3. I went and bought a really cheap phone and got all my emails come through. And the day I'd been arrested, I'd had about 3 or 4 job emails come through. Wow. So I went straight to all of those interviews that week, and I tried to just block out what had happened. I'd never been arrested, never been in trouble. So I was like, I don't know how this is going to go, what's going to happen, but I'm just going to behave. So I went and got a job, and I went for all these interviews, and I got every single interview offered. So brilliant. The one I thought was the best one was a company called Regis. They're a serviced office company. So it fit in. It was a job in the city centre. It was quite corporate. It was very corporate, actually. It's probably the most corporate job I've ever had. It's a serviced office, so we let the offices to clients, like big clients like Coca-Cola, Carillion, HS2. You've got like some massive clients in there. So it's a really corporate environment, and I was the facilities manager of that building. So I had to undergo the health and safety aspects of the building, the maintenance, the sales, booking, finding clients to come in, decorating offices. So you're like an interior designer, you're everything you can think of that you need to run that building. That's what you are. And there was quite a high pressure job. And it was actually probably the most high pressure job I ever had, even including the army after 3. And not turning to cocaine through that was a triumph in itself, right? But yeah, I stayed there for 2 years, for the whole time I was on bail. And in that time, I managed to see what I was like clean, and what I was like in a normal environment, not a military environment where you're not allowed, where they tell you what to do. I was now free, and I had this job that it was okay. It wasn't what I always wanted to do, but I was just rediscovering myself. And that's that. That's
brilliant. So obviously after you finished there and you'd been on bail, what was the outcome from there? How did you get to where you are now? Because I mean, now you have an amazing business and an amazing life, and I just think it will intrigue people to just find out how you completely flipped your life around.
Okay, so I would say going through that process of being with Regis and the discovering myself and just trying to work out where things were going to go and think about the ifs and what would happen if I go to jail. What's going to happen if I don't go to jail? And one of my best friends was like, Mike, like, you've always got ideas. You've always got business ideas. Think of some. What are you going to do? And I'm like, I can't. My pure focus was surviving. It was exactly the same feeling as I got when they told us that we were going to Afghan in the army. And my battalion had a very rough Afghan before I joined. So I got all the stories of people that had died, people that had got injured, and it was horrific. And I thought we was going to Afghan that Christmas, and the same preparation that I put into that, I put into the prison. And I was like, look, prison can't be any worse than the army. It's got to be, like, the army's tough. It's a tough life. And there's a lot of people that went through the process, well, including myself at the end, that just can't take it. It's hard. And like I done nearly 4 years, but I've seen people do one night and leave. So I thought, prison's not going to be any harder than the army. I did 4 years in the army. I'm probably not going to go to jail for more than 4 years. If I'd be out on good behavior or whatnot. So I went through the same kind of mental prep for that. But it turns out I didn't go to jail. So when everything comes to a crunch, I went to court. I've been to court so many times for this process as well. And I pleaded guilty to possession of drugs, and with the intent to supply on a non-commercial basis. I never dealt drugs. I was an addict, and I had a large amount for myself. So it was hard for them to find any evidence to point in that direction. But either way, I had given some cocaine to friends, and I was charged with that. And that basically, the judge said he was going to send me to jail. I was going to go to jail for 4 years. That he had in his mind. But because I'd served 2 years bail, and I was best behavior, if you like that, I wasn't in any trouble. I kept this job down for the whole 2 years. I had 2 children. My father was literally, he was virtually on his deathbed. He actually lasted a year after that. We didn't know he was going to, but he could have passed away at any time. My mum, but on my final court day, was in hospital having a hip replacement. It was only carers going into the house looking after my dad. So the judge, and they were so, I can't fault the system.
Yeah.
I'd never been in trouble before. I think they could see that.
Yeah.
And my army record was good until I came out, and they could see that I developed a problem at the end of my army career. So he gave me 2 years suspended sentence, and he gave me charity shop. He gave me community service, which I ended up working in a charity shop, and I got a hefty fine. I can't remember what the fine was now, but it was like £1,000. But you know, at the time, that was like, oh, do you know, it was the best feeling ever. It was the best £1,000 to pay ever. Like, so, so that's where, after that point, I kind of, it unlocked my brain. And the funny thing is, my barrister, she was like, I'll say like an angel, right? And my missus will probably kill me for saying that. But at the time, I had a barrister who was actually gonna, just said to me, plead guilty, Mike, and you'll get a third off your sentence. You'll be out in 3 years. I was like, I can't. And I got this girl, her name was Chloe, actually. And my barrister was ill or had another appointment and couldn't make my final hearing. And she came in and she sorted the whole lot out. And she said, I can see you're a good guy. You shouldn't be going to jail. I'm going to plead your case to the judge, and hopefully we'll get you walking out of here today. And then she said to me afterwards, she was like, I'm sure you're either going to be a millionaire or see you on TV. And that's what she said to me when I left. Yeah. And that was it. I went away and I thought nothing. I thought I'm never going to be on TV. Like that wasn't like in my thought. And then I went away and I was like, what do I do? And it kind of like opened my mind, and I was just free now to concentrate on the next chapter of my life. So I got clean, and I knew I was never going to go back on drugs no matter what happens. It was on for the next chapter of my life. And during the time I was working for Regis, I met a beautiful woman, the most like amazing person I could ever meet. Terry, we're now together, and she has been a massive part of this journey for me as well, and gave me purpose again, and gave me a reason to want to live and want to go on and get through that whole court process and come out the other side. And she was there with me throughout the whole of that. And I realized that relationships were a massive part in this as well. And I was in a relationship for a number of years, and it wasn't a very good relationship on both sides. We should never have got together. And it was just a toxic relationship. And that was one of the nothing really bad had ever happened in that relationship. It was just, we just weren't right for each other. And it was more the depression side of things. And it was like, we'd sit there, she'd sit in one chair, I'd sit in another, and we just weren't happy. And that was another reason why I would turn to cocaine sometimes and just like forget about my relationship. And so that made a massive difference. And I met Terry, and that was on to the next chapter of my life. And
basically that's where you are you are now. I mean, this chapter has opened, I mean, you've got your business head back on again, haven't you?
Yeah, so I fell in love with business immediately. So from that point, I think day after I come out of court, I said to Terry, right, we're going to go away on holiday. Let's go. It was in the UK. We was like, let's go Cornwall. So we went to Cornwall, and I had no money. Like literally, I was broke, nothing. I did get a little payout from the army for my injuries. That most of that went on court and barrister fees. So I had no money. Like I was drained financially. I just had my wages from the job. What I forgot to mention was my life. I knew that Regis was a good job, but it wasn't for me. It was never going to be the job that I could see myself in for forever. And that you can only get so far in it. And for me, I don't like seeing the end. I want to know I can just keep going.
Yeah.
Like people like Elon Musk, he's going to go to Mars one day. Like that is so cool. And that's kind of where I am. I'm not saying I'm going to go to Mars, but
but you just want to go to the top.
Yeah, I want to go as far as I can with anything that I do.
Yeah.
So I, being an ex-soldier, so this is where it all starts going. This is probably what started the social media aspect of my journey.
Mm-hmm.
So being an ex-soldier, I was just ordinary Mike, didn't have myself out there, normal Facebook, spoke to a few people every now and again, and that was it. But what happened was, because I was a soldier and I got in trouble for drugs, the paper jumped all over that. So they loved that story.
Yeah.
And they put it out there. Drug dealer jailed. They said that I'd gone to jail in the headline, and they actually class technically a suspended sentence as a jail sentence.
Right.
But they don't say that in the article. They're just like jailed soldier.
Yeah.
Massive page. It was like full page of the of the Observer, and I was like, I didn't know what to do. Like that was, I'd gone from having a massive high of coming out of court and thinking my life was back on track to this article out there. And I didn't know anything about this article. And what I had decided is I'd gone, right, I'm quitting Regis. This is another thing. I've got through the court. I want to do something for myself. I don't know what. I have zero money, but I know I was like a coiled spring. I knew I've got to go out and do something. And I had that energy, and I wasn't getting any younger. And I thought, let's utilize this energy that I've got now to springboard into something. But I had no idea what I was going to go into. So I was trotting along to my boss at my old office with my resignation letter in my pocket. And I got a call, and I was crossing over the road to where my building was, and my manager was waiting for me. My area manager was waiting for me, and my phone rings, and it was one of my other best friends, lovely lad. He tried to get me off drugs so many times, and he'd followed one of his dreams. He left the army. He was in the army, but we'd been childhood friends since we was 11, and he left the army and become a photojournalist. So he was all over like newspaper articles. That's what he did every day. And he phones me up and he's like, Mike, have you seen the newspaper article? I was like, no. What? He's like, mate, they've got a big article on you. You need to look at it. I said, I guess it's not good. He's like, no, it's horrendous. And it basically had just said what I told you, that I was a squaddie, and I got arrested for drugs and dealing it, but they didn't make out I was they made out like I was a massive drug dealer. And obviously that wasn't the case. I'd just give it to my friends. That was it. And that was literally it. But yeah, they made out that was this mad drug dealer, and he said it's not good. So I was like just about to go into this meeting. I was like, oh, okay, I'll have a look when I get out. I hadn't even read it. Went into the meeting, and I don't know if it actually happened this way, but this is how I kind of remember it. And I kind of remember this really stern lady. Her name was Abby, and she was standing there. It wasn't like this, but this is how it pictures it in my head. And she was standing there with the paper in her hands, pointing at the article. And I literally went into the office. And, wow, she got the paper out. She had the paper there. She showed me the article, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I only found out about this 2 minutes ago."
Yeah.
She's like, "Unfortunately, we're gonna have to let you go. You can't work for us." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But they couldn't sack me because I don't know why they couldn't let me. They couldn't just fire me. So they said, if you agree to resign, we'll give you like 2 months' pay and a bonus. I was like, yeah, sounds okay. So signed on the dotted line, and I had my resignation in my pocket, and I was like, I was going to resign. So thanks. And and I went away. So I paid off. We was going on. Me and Terry was going. That's when we was going away. So I bought us a little breakaway. I paid all my bills in advance. So I paid off all the bills we needed to pay off. Went away on holiday, spent all the money. That was it. So I knew I had a month to look for a job or get an idea that's going to make me rich. Right? So I was like, I come back and I had about, I don't know, probably 100 quid, but I set £20 aside, and I was like, I'm going to see what I can do with this £20. And I started my community service. And that was in a charity shop.
Yeah.
And the manager was lovely there. And I asked her, I said, am I allowed to buy things for myself and sell them on eBay? And she was like, of course you can, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, cool. So that was how it started. And that was the real journey. That was like where everything like started. I had £20 and I bought, I've always had an eye for selling stuff and making money.
Yeah.
So I looked around the charity shop and I thought, oh, this is almost impossible. I can't do this. There's like nothing in this charity shop that's going to be worth any money whatsoever. It was all crappy clothes or broken toys. And this wasn't as nice as it was. And this charity shop's not there anymore. So I can probably say this, but it wasn't the best of charity shop. Like it was a high street brand. So it was a big brand.
Yeah.
And actually, I think we've got a brand deal on the YouTube channel with this actual charity. So what do I say? Which we're going to be working on soon. But it wasn't the best of run charity shops, I'll say. And all the toys were grubby. Everything was just a mess. And I looked on the shelf and there was this doll's house dresser. It was like a mahogany dressing table with a mirror on it. It was intricate and it looked really nice.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it's got to be worth a tenner. How much? And it had 79p on it. So I took it to the till, and even though I'm on community service, they give you staff discount.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. So I got my staff discount on it, and I think this was my second shift because I didn't want to do it like on my first shift. So it's like my second shift, and I bought it worked out about 50p, and I went home, and it had on the bottom a label. It said Franklin Mint, and it was a gold label. And I was like, Googled it. Well, it's Franklin Mint actually make limited edition like plates, mugs, dolls, all sorts of stuff.
Oh, right.
And this was actually a limited edition dressing table from the Titanic movie, and it was Rose's dresser. So it was a replica of her dresser, and they were selling for between £5,000 and £1,000. Wow. Yeah. So I sold it immediately on eBay. I took an offer of 500 quid.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was my first hand. I had a handful of things before, but pretty much my first mega charity shop find. And I realized there's serious money to be made in this. No, I'm not talking like little money. There's big money. I could make. I made like quarter of a month's wage in like one item. So that was what set me off. And I ended up completing my my community service, and I loved the charity shop so much. I liked the people there. I got on with them, and I ended up volunteering, and I stayed. And not only that, it did benefit me as well. I got stock from there. I got first pick of stock, but I liked giving back. And at this time as well, because I'd done the whole drugs thing, and there was a lot of people coming through on community service, and I was like trying to tell them my story, and that was the first time I was telling people my story and trying to help them. And like I remember one lad came through who was he was a drug addict, and he still was. And I was talking to him, trying to convince him to get clean and not do it. And then it was kind of a therapy for me. It definitely feels good helping other people. And it releases something that I'd never felt before. But also I felt like I owed it to myself and society, because I've never been in trouble, and I just didn't like it. I was embarrassed by it. So I thought, let's try and right that wrong. And that's kind of where that started. And so that's the first chapter of me going into business.
So obviously you've now made a huge business, and you've got a very successful YouTube channel, which is all about what you find and how you sell things and things like that, isn't it?
So I think how the whole social media thing was, I've always been a YouTube fan. Me and my eldest boy, he got me into YouTube. back in like what 2010 probably, and we were always watching his Minecraft videos and stuff, and we came across a few YouTubers that me and my son both liked. Like there was a crossing between the ages, and I was like, this YouTuber thing looks really cool, and they were living really cool lives, and I was like, yeah, this I could do a bit of this, but never pursued it. And then when this article came out about me in the paper, I was like, I felt I had to prove. I was on a mission, and I felt I had to prove everybody wrong.
Yeah.
What they thought about me, and I wanted to just put right all the wrongs. So I decided to create this social media presence with Instagram and with YouTube, and trying to like influence people to change their life and to do things that they enjoy doing, and to find the things out there that are good, and for me, the things out there that will keep me away from the bad. And that's kind of where that started. And the selling the charity shop bits and the car boot bits on eBay was one entity of the business, which was for me at the time, that was the main entity. That was the thing that was bringing the money in. That was all I could see. That was what that was the business.
Yeah.
Then I brought YouTube into the equation, and just videoing and showing people what I bought. And there was a lot of people interested in that. And it's quite a big community, really. And I continued to do that for about a year. And then I realized, actually, YouTube is the business, is it a bigger part, as big a part of business as actually buying the stock.
Yeah.
And now, like, we're 3 years into YouTube, and YouTube has just created so many opportunities for me. It's made me perform better, because I'm always trying to outdo my last and trying to get better stock in, make better quality videos, upgrading my equipment. We get sponsorship deals on a channel, and it just grew into this whole business now. So without YouTube, I wouldn't have a business, I don't think, now. And it's all come hand in hand. And the thing is, without the charity shop finds, without the treasures that I find, and I wouldn't have a YouTube channel. So they're both a symbiotic relationship. Yeah, they're both hand in hand. And I called my channel Reset at the beginning. I called it Reselling Life and Adventure. So it was finding things to resell, my life and my journey, like the drugs, the pursuit of happiness, the adventure, and the final one was the adventure. Being an ex-soldier, I love stuff like that. I love going mountain climbing. I love. I've started to learn to become a pilot, so flying and doing all the things I've always wanted to do. Canoeing, I love canoeing, so we went out and did loads of canoeing, and the whole channel was just a way. It was like my therapy. It was like a way of keeping me away from the bad, but just enjoying life and loving life.
That's brilliant. And that's because obviously you've had a TV program since then as well, because I presume they've seen you on your YouTube channel, and got in touch with you. So you did, was it Bidding Wars?
It was Bidding Wars. So yeah, that was so cool. So that was over a year ago, we got approached by 3 different TV shows. One of them was Bidding Wars. One of them, this was at the time when COVID just was starting. Yeah. It was actually before COVID had even existed. I wouldn't have been able to tell you what COVID was. I didn't know about it. Nobody knew about it. It was all this was about a month before. And then I got offered a TV show, and that TV show sounded really cool. That was like following me around directly, what I do, and they loved my YouTube channel, and they wanted to do something with that. Yeah. And then COVID hit, so we ended up doing what I was going to do, go to a casting audition, but they wanted me to do that via Zoom. So we ended up doing that via Zoom, and they said, "Yeah, you've got the part." That was like buzzing. That's so cool. Like, and then it fizzled out. Nothing ever come of it. The production got cancelled. All with the TV production companies, from what I've gathered from the little bits that I've done, is they contract a lot of the staff. So they get told they're working on a project. They all come together. They work on that project, and then they just disperse onto other projects. Yeah. either with the company or freelance. So everybody just dispersed, and that fizzled out. And then I got approached by Channel 4 Bidding Wars, and they said, like, you're the first person that we've approached. We've seen you on YouTube. We love your channel. Do you want to do the show? They offered us every single episode on the show. And I was like, yeah, let's go for it. I could see the potential opportunities of branding my business.
Yeah.
And I branded my business, my name. So if my name's on TV, then that would bring traffic to my business. So it was the whole reason about calling my whole business my name was just because I knew I was getting a television exposure, and I thought it's a way of propelling it to the next level.
Yeah.
So, and then at the same time as that, we got an offer from the BBC bidding rooms as well.
Oh yeah.
But because Channel 4 wouldn't allow us to do that, they said because we're in contract with them, we had to do that. So I missed two opportunities, but we got the bidding wars. So I don't know. Bidding Wars was exciting. It was cool. It was wicked. I loved going on TV. It got us a little bit extra publicity for the business. Not a massive amount, but it got a little bit extra.
Yeah.
We've been spotted going around a few shops, a few charity shops. And yeah, you find a lot of the people that are in the charity shops all are into that. So they see you, and we've been spotted in a couple of charity shops and stuff. So
that's
quite cool. I don't know if there's going to be another season. We're waiting to find out if we're going to get another season, but we've said that if there is, we'll do it.
Good.
So so that was again something I never expected.
But the barrister told you she was going to see you on TV.
I know, right? So let's hope the second one now comes true. But
it's amazing.
And that's another thing. So we got the business is from going from that day when I bought £20 worth of stock. We've now got over £500,000 worth of stock in the showroom here. So we've gone from 20 quid's worth of stock to £500,000 worth of stock. That's listed items on our website and our eBay and everything, but it's just growing and growing. And like by the end of this year, I'd like to get it to £1 million worth of stock. So that's kind of where it's at now.
Mike, for where you've come from, for where you are now, is just amazing. And I just hope, and I know you will have inspired so many people listening today. It's just fantastic, and all you can see is you're so driven, and I know you've got a wonderful family and a little boy, and you've got your two other boys, and I know you feel passionate about making sure you've got a life for them, and I'm just thankful for you coming on here today to tell your story, because it's just been amazing, and I just can't wait to see where you're going next, because it's just so exciting.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I don't know. I think one of the hardest things is the pressure I've put on myself, because I don't know where to take it next and where it's going to go. But I've always been a massive believer in everything happens for a reason. And the path that I've gone down, going back to the point where we were talking about working at 3 together, everything sent you off in that direction, and I can trace it all the way back to then. And I don't know if I would be in the place I am now without any of those events throughout the years. So I'm a big believer in just letting life kind of take the way, and then when I find something along that way, I grasp it with both hands and then ride it to the next location. So I think that's kind of
absolutely brilliant. I mean, what would you say is your main thing you would advise, tell anybody if they, for where you've been and how you've come out to the other side? What would one bit of advice that you'd give anybody, do you think?
As in the drug addiction side?
Yeah, just to get your life back on track. You've just done amazing.
I think, and like when I said to you about if you look at the incidences, there's been 3 main occasions where I've gone off drugs and gone back to drugs.
Yeah.
And I don't think you will ever come off. I'm not sure. I might be wrong on this, and there's probably people out there that will say, no, that's not right. If you've got the right guidance, then anyone will come off drugs. But I would never have come off until it was right for me.
Yeah.
And until I decided that was it. And no matter what people tried to do to help me, I wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to help someone that doesn't want to be helped.
Yeah.
But if there is somebody that wants to be helped, then you've got to help them as much as you can, and guide them and show them the right way. And I would say the one thing that's kept me on the straight and narrow is doing something you enjoy doing, and finding something that you enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy it, there's no point to life. What's the point? We're only here for a limited amount of time. We don't know how long that time is. You need to just enjoy it and do as much as you can in that time.
I totally agree. I think if you've got the right mindset, and you need that, and you've got to be a positive person, which you certainly are, even going through all the stuff you've gone through, you've stayed positive. It's fantastic. So I just want to thank you again. What I'll do is, obviously, we'll put all your details, so if anybody wants to get in touch, they'll be in the podcast, and they can watch your YouTube channel, and obviously go onto your eBay and everything like that. So
at the moment, I'm running like a basic mentor program. I'm not charging for it. It's not something I'm trying to sell. It's just anybody that needs any help, or any business advice, or any advice, just my personal experience of what I've gone through with the drug addiction. I'm there, and you can find me on Instagram. It's Mike Barnett Official, and ask me any questions you like, and I'll help as many people as I can.
That's wonderful. That's a really good thing for somebody to take on. So thanks again, Mike.
No, thanks, Maxine. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it, and appreciate it. Thank you.